Greetings, greetings. Yeah, good morning, grand rising, or whatever positive affirmations you like to say in the early part of the day. This is Body-Culinary and inviting you into the kitchen, food prep area for a quick live foods jam session. So, routines are really, really important. Anything that we can build into a routine makes life a lot easier because we don't have to make the decision to start yet again, right? We don't have to think about it because it becomes a habit, and habits are not to be underestimated, right? So, there are a few things that I incorporate into a very, very simple routine. The simpler I make it, the better. So, a couple of things that I do are aloe and ginger. Now, these things are really, really expensive if you buy them from a store. I mean, let me know in the comments, how much do you pay? I'd love to hear how much do you pay if you use fresh aloe or aloe juice or aloe gel? How much are you paying for it from the store? And if you get the gel, which I used to buy the gel sometimes from the pharmacy or the health food store, if you want a better quality, how long has it been sitting on the shelf? And what is put into it to keep it on the shelf? So not to make these things right or wrong, but if we just want to start to take a look and think about the quality of the food and the medicine that's in the food and how that the medicine that's in the food can benefit us. Greetings, greetings. So this is a slip or a piece of aloe. I have quite a bit of them growing in the yard. This one, even though I grow a lot of aloe, and I started from a little teeny piece, just like the tip of my finger, and I have aloe proliferating, growing all over my yard. Someone gifted me with this aloe, so it kind of makes me think of the tradition of my grandmother when they would be, my grandma Lou would be sending seasoning and cocoa bread back and forth to another elder woman in the neighborhood, right? Traditions. So this one is growing from baby, and what's really, really interesting. This is something I like to have in the morning. My grandma used to say, cut off a piece of aloe like so, and you trim off the pieces here, the spiky pieces. And she said, you eat it, right? She said, clean your system from mucus. And the rest of it I will put on my skin. So if you take a look at the aloe from here, I'm going to gently break a piece off. So I don't know if you can see. I'm going to gently, let's see, I'm going to pull the outermost piece off. So if you can see how it looks here, I'm going to pull this off gently rather than just rip it. Alright, so this part is still intact, and if I wanted to, it has a distinct scent. I can put it right back into the ground and let it grow as much as I like. And another tip I found when I had all these aloes, at least 30 something aloes, that when I started from here, that I found that the aloe does not like a whole lot of direct, intense heat. It's very hot where I am here, but I found a lot of the aloe started to die when it got too much sunlight and too much heat. So that's why I like to say the food and the plants are talking to you. They're communicating, right? If we get too much sun, even though we're melanated, there's a point where you can get too much sun, you can get burnt, or you can get heat stroke, or you can get too hot. So there's a balance with everything. So the aloe, and it will stain things, so I'll keep it in a separate bowl. But it's one of the most beneficial plants that we can keep around in our house. And what I'll do is I'll just take the ends, and if you have a big piece, you can make some fresh aloe gel or some juice for your hair and for your skin. It has a distinct scent. Now, a lot of us don't like bitters, right? We just want the party in our mouth. Even if it's whole, living, fresh, unprocessed foods, we have a tendency to only like the pleasurable stuff, right? Or the sweets and the sugars and the fruit, right? So bitters are very, very, very important. And bitters provide a balance. I don't know if any of you out there are familiar, but when you go to traditional African and some Black and African American, Afro-American union or wedding ceremonies, they'll have a part of the ceremony where they'll put a piece of bitters in your mouth, something sweet in your life to represent the sweetness in life. Bitters, because we know bitters are a part of life, and things that are spicy and hot, right? So it's very representative in those tastes and different things that happen in life. So I'm going to fillet this, the sharp knife. Be careful, right? And just slice it open in the middle, right? And just like my grandma said, she was right, because all the things, most of the things that pretty much most of the things she told me, I've returned to. So this is what I'm going to eat that's fresh. So now when you're getting the aloe in the tube from the pharmacy, right, the little flip top squeeze container, if you're buying the aloe juice, you will not get that scent, right, because they deodorize it or whatever process they do to deodorize it. That's part of the process that you don't get. And also the bitters. Now, this is very bitter, and I actually find that the smaller leaves are much more bitter. Look at that, are much more bitter than the larger leaves that you can get. So this is just a good example of the nuances of the food, especially when it's whole and it's living, that you don't get when it's in a bottle or a tube. Now, that being said, work with what you have, or what and where you are, right? Use whatever's available, whatever food prep tools, whatever food you have, make use of what you have. But I hope to stimulate you and stimulate your curiosity about what is it in the living foods that makes a difference. So I'm gonna do like my grandma. This is how I do it. Bitter. I could scrape the whole thing off. This is bitter. Bitter, bitter. This is so bitter. Let me tell you one of the things with the bitter. Oh, and look, and if you put it on your skin, you have all that fresh aloe gel. Make sure you rub it in, because when it gels, if it's too thick and you don't spread it, sometimes it can flake a little bit. But the aloe is very hydrating, and it also tightens your pores. So for those folks that have very open and loose or very open or noticeable pores, the aloe can actually tighten your pores. And this is something that everybody can grow at home. And this is also excellent for hydrating the hair. I just made some from a lot of these little aloes, and just made aloe water and a bit of an aloe gel. You can mix them differently, so that you can get a gel or you can get a juice, right? And that's what I'll use to hydrate my hair. So I have this thing about just being sufficient, right? Self-sufficient. And I've tried the rose waters and all these things, but I'm always thinking, like, there's so many things when it comes to beautification and preserving our health and our vitality that leaches resources. So you can treat yourself, but for many people, sometimes the rose water and these different things can go upwards of, like, I've seen a bottle recently here for $19 in Central America or more, and they're expensive. And then there's all the plastic and these things. But if you grow aloe juice, this is something that's extremely hydrating. I've tried all different ways, which I'll do with all foods, of preparing the aloe. Once in a rush, I cut off the spiky ends and blended the whole aloe, and I strained it really, really well. But plants actually have, quote unquote, poisons in them, or things to protect them in their skin, just like people do. There's some frogs and some insects that can secrete certain substances to ward off predators. And when I blended the whole aloe and I strained it, it actually made my skin itch. I never get that effect from the inside of the gel. And this one woman told me that she had an allergy to aloe. It gave her an effect. So that's interesting, because that one time that I blended also the skin in an effort to be quick, even though I strained it really, really well, there's a substance inside of the skin that made me itch, 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 and I had to rinse it out. And so that mucilage is really important. Things that you find in the plant kingdom and queendom, like okra, some callaloo, there's some greens, and the aloe. These things have are very beneficial. They're very hydrating. They're very soothing to the intestines. They actually are very similar to the fluids that our reproductive organs secrete. And they're actually beneficial to those organs. So that's why I say the food, when you handle your own food, you get so much information. So if you leave the aloe on your hands, it's going to be bitter. And so you want to make sure you rinse it so you don't transfer it to your knife and to your cutting board. It's very beneficial for your skin, but you don't want everything to taste like aloe. So that's the fresh aloe. So that's one of the things that I have. And when I'm eating bitters, I can rotate the bitters, because with all herbs and with all plants, some people may not realize there's certain plants you can cycle off and on, that you don't need to eat every single day, because you can they can not have as much effectiveness, kind of like antibiotics. So this is Cerrassee. Now, usually I've posted some pictures on the Body-Culinary Instagram, which you can go over there and check that out, of the fresh Cerrassee. And this is some I pulled from the yard. And this is just dried. Even you see the yellow, the flowers are in there. This is a very, very beneficial bitter herb that's a general blood cleaner and antiseptic, and it's also very antiviral. And so if you have it early in the morning, right, when you've had all kinds of stuff digesting overnight and stuff is just, built up in there, we can have little buggers and parasites and things in the system. Some people, even sometimes worms and different things, they don't like bitters. So sour things and bitters are very, very beneficial to our system. And this is one of the things that we avoid the most. They have actually a very distinct, the aloe and also the Cerrassee, even though this is dry, they have a very distinct scent. It's not an unpleasant scent. It smells very green and very fresh, but it's a distinct kind of green scent. But these are, I don't eat the stem. In the States, when I found this inside the Caribbean markets, quite often it's gray, right? And you'll see this was just dried. It's hot here, and I just left it inside this bowl and it dried. So that's giving you information. That's telling you about how old some of the herbs are that we're paying top dollar for. So every environment is going to give you some kind of fruit. If you're in the colder environments in the north, you have apples, and you have all different kinds of varieties of apples and different things in different regions. So don't fret if you're not in a tropical area. You can get you get more burdock. I've seen more burdock in the States and more dandelion. Hey, greetings, Kenesha Robinson. How are you? So I just want to encourage you to just keep your eye peeled at the farmer's market or locally. If you have any, I love grandmothers. I love the grandmothers. I'm so tuned in. My mother says that, I'm like one of my great grandma Mackie. But I got my grandma Lou, my great grandma Mackie, and my great grandma Jean. And these were women that looked phenomenal for their age, and their brain was sharp in their 90s. And so my eyes were peeled because I saw a big difference between them and a lot of the women that I saw in the church growing up. The majority that I saw were obese. And so I just watched different habits. I didn't know that word, but I watched the different patterns and habits. And I definitely see a distinct difference. And one of the big things I always say with Grandma Lou, she say, if I want garbage, I mean you own garbage. Not that we want to eat garbage, but I'm very big on eating my own food, serving my family and my community foods. I want their tongue to be used to my food. Like some of the Korean folks that I've worked with, they'll put the kimchi, if you're familiar with kimchi is, like a spicy, kind of like a sauerkraut made from Chinese cabbage. They'll put that on their children's mouth, like most women do. You'll put the food, like birds, if you ever watch them, they chew the food and put it up in the baby's mouth. So the baby's system, and they get their baby acclimated to the foods that they're eating. So I want to encourage us to get used to bitters because they are so beneficial. And sometimes the things that we avoid quite often are the things that we need the most, right? The people that are super, super bendy in yoga, usually those people, to balance their bodies out, could use more stability training, right? So you're not all loose inside of your joints and your sockets, or different types of strength training, right? The folks that love to do cardio, sometimes you could do so many hours of cardio, you can, what am I going to say? You can burn away and run off a lot of your muscle. So it's very balanced. So many of us at the pace we're moving and living in the kind of artificial environments are having to listen, tune in, and find our way back to the balance of natural in whatever environment that we're in. That's with our eating. That's with our hair. That's in learning what the quantities are that we need for our body. Obviously, if we look like we've got, twin babies in our stomach, we're eating too much food. That can also be a combination of bloat and water retention, which looks just like fat, and adipose tissue. So I know that many of us, especially women, can feel very panicked and anxious when it comes to losing fat weight, not muscle weight. Many of us don't make that distinction. But I invite you to relax and allow the food to communicate and listen to not just, oh, it's vegan. I like to say it's beyond vegan. Vegan, we can get so caught up in the labels, and it cycles off and it cycles back in terms of popularity. But if you start to listen and take your time and pay attention to the mood that you're in, the quantities that you're eating, more likely you'll be very consistent. And similar to a quote unquote yoga or movement practice, every time you come, and I like movement practice, right? More than just exercise. Sometimes just these labels, we don't tune into the mentality that's the foundation that's driving us to move, whether that's release or if we're just trying to beat the body into submission. And sometimes that can just be temporary, right? So I invite you to eat bitters. Oh, the other thing is ginger, right? And these are things that are simple. If it's simple, it's sustainable, and it's something that you can repeat. And it doesn't have to be so expensive. We're driving ourselves crazy buying all of these different products, which sends a lot of economics outside. And it's not only economics, but we're not being so creative. We're not involved in the process. So I find it's a lot of information that we could be missing. So I have fresh ginger. And then also, this is just starting to get a little bit of a sprout. So I can put this outside if I wanted to, and I can plant it. I can grow my own ginger. And you can grow ginger in pots, right? So, you'll see, like, for those folks that eat sushi, you'll see also in a lot of Asian markets, they have pickled ginger, which often is pink, right? Because they have to put a preservative in it, right, to hold it on the shelf. So that's another big distinction when you're eating living foods. When you're buying many of the things in the store, right, the outside aisles are the produce aisles where the food is living and has lots of nutrients in it. And these foods will usually have water in them. But to preserve them, if they still have liquid, usually they'll have to put salt or some other chemicals to hold them. So the salt can also stimulate and give what I call a false appetite. So even if it's good food, even if it's living foods, we can still be eating too much because we're craving the flavor, but it's kind of distorted. And if you just slow down and you pay attention, you can start to notice false appetite. And on the show that we have at 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 12 o'clock right now, this time of the year in Central America, quite often we'll have folks that come on the channel and they'll be asking questions. And I used to work at a holistic health center for several years back in the States. And I do get it. People, that are taking lots of medications and have just come out of surgeries, we're panicked and we're anxious. At the same time, there are many things that we have done to the body. Sometimes we've done damage to the body or things that we put into the body. We have the opportunity to slow down and acknowledge we have to pay for everything we've done to the body. And a whole lot of things that we've put into the body have to come out. And fortunately, this body is such a magnificent mechanism that the body is cleansing and building all the time on its own. Quite often, we can be stopping the process because we do what I call detox to retox, detox to retox. People are going to a big binge and eat pizzas and stuff and all kinds of junk food, even if it's health junk, and then go on a fast and then not take the time to break the fast properly. And this can be very taxing on the body. Sometimes if we just did a bit of a consistent practice of movement and explore it and enjoy it and just have certain habits, like if you have ginger, this is something you have on a regular basis. You can take and you can cycle your different bitters, right? So you don't have to worry about a whole lot of harmful chemicals. We can cycle these things. They're very natural. You can relax. And they're simple. These things and habits and routines that we can also pass on to our children. I remember a lot of stuff from sitting at the table with my grandma Lou, grating coconut and chopping seasoning, and then her putting lime on my face when I had marks on my face. She said, "Why you feel so poxy?" And she put lime or lemon on my face. And I remember I was like, it's burning, it's burning. But I've come all the way around to cycle back to what Grandma Lou was saying. So she wasn't big on a whole lot of words, But I'm using all the hot peppers, the spices, the herbs, because I find they have tremendous medicinal value. And they're simple. These are traditions, the ways of the grandmothers we can pass on so that we know what to do for a fever, what to do for constipation, when to leave certain plants alone. Like, say, for example, when you're pregnant, what to apply to your face. It's not the same thing as a medical doctor, but there's so much that we can do that's preventative with our lifestyle. That's simple, where we can relax. We can relax. We can relax. We can relax. And this is healthcare, right? This is healthcare. And if I get hit on my bike with a car, forbid, I'll take a cast. If I need oxygen, give me oxygen. But the goal is to stay out of those places, unless you're going, for a particular kind of blood test. And then even then, sometimes, say, for example, the test study groups, you have to look at everything with a grain of salt and use your common sense. For example, if you're having a tremendous allergic reaction to the aloe, or maybe at this point in time, maybe you're just very allergic, or maybe at this point in time, it could be stimulating also different things in your system to come out, right? You have certain things that you can eat that can stimulate parasites and things in your system. But the food is simple, and the food can help provide nutrients that your intestines and your body can absorb, and gently take all the different fibers and the cellulose or the plant fiber that we can't digest, that will gently push things out of your system. That's simple, and it's something we can do and relax. Plus, the ginger, for those folks looking to incorporate a lot more whole, unprocessed living foods into your system. This is something, I don't have a huge tolerance for cold. I actually don't care for the cold, but this is something that can stimulate your metabolism, right? And it can also, it's very a warming food. It's very warming to the body. And this is what I use if I felt like a little scratch in my throat, if I felt a cold coming on, I use ginger. So I'd have to be in excruciating pain or going in for a surgery before I would take a painkiller. And that's been for years. So I don't take medications, but I'll look for the herbs and the things where I can feel this. When I eat the ginger, it feels like, I feel like something is scratching my throat on the inside. And it's not leaving a whole bunch of toxic residues that my liver has to handle. Quite often, we're just looking at the vanity of the face and the muscles, but we're not really considering the organs and the adrenal glands, right? We have glands. I don't give you too much information. I know it's early and I don't want to bog you down, but these different glands that we have in our body secrete different natural chemical hormones that are very important. They regulate our body temperature. They can stimulate us to produce more oils from the sebaceous glands. All of these glands in the body, they secrete certain hormones. They're responsible for growth and the different stages of life. So if we keep taking so much quote unquote synthetic vitamins, first of all, they can deposit and give us toxicity inside of the liver, right? Even aspirins, all of these things, we just act like the body can take everything, and so we're just overloading the body. But sometimes we just need sleep, just the discipline of make a choice to cut out some of the TV programs and the conversation and just go to sleep rather than keep burning out the adrenal glands with so much. Not telling grown folks what to do with so much coffee, even sometimes too much tea, to artificially stimulate the body to do something. Sometimes we keep doing that, then the glands can lose their ability to do their original function, which is produce those different hormones, if that makes sense. So take home today is just to encourage you not to avoid bitters. Just a little bit goes a long way, and it's a great habit to have, and great something to pass these habits on down to our children. These are things, women folks, you may share with your man, because sometimes they may not know this, some of this stuff. And there are some men from the Caribbean in the old South, I don't know if they still exist, where they did have this information passed on to them from their grandmothers, right? So this is very, very important information. An ounce of prevention is what? Better than a pound of cure. I'm not big on sayings unless they really make common sense. So I just want to encourage you, keep it simple. These are things that are very doable. You can plant this ginger in the garden. And what do you have to lose for a piece of ginger? You have nothing to lose. You're going to learn something. Sometimes we make things so grand and complicated, it becomes overwhelming. And then we don't get anything done. So these are parts of my morning routine and habits. I will cycle depending on what herbs are available around me, and everybody can grow something, even like little kitchen containers, cups. I'll recycle all kinds of plastic containers to grow things, and things that I'm eating, I'll plant them. Hot peppers, I've gotten hot peppers from the seeds that I planted, and I have some green peppers, bell peppers coming up in the yard from seeds that I was eating. And if the seeds don't grow, then that's telling you something about it. Perhaps the plant has been tampered with, or the seeds in the laboratory. So the food is talking to you and it's communicating with you. And I just want to share that before I go off and I do my exercise. So I know it's 2 hours difference. It's only 6:38 here, so I think it's 8:38 Eastern Standard Time in New York. I want to invite you folks to create a great day on purpose. Do check out the Thanksgiving, giving thanks to the body temple challenge that's going on. So that's how much whole, fresh, unprocessed foods, cruelty free, preferable cruelty free first to yourself, to your own breasts, organs, and body temple, right? If you're cruelty free to yourself, then it would make sense to be cruelty free and cause the least harm possible, right? If we move away from the label and perhaps focus more on the behaviors and the results, then it's something that can bring us together. But that's how much whole, fresh, living, unprocessed foods can you get for $25. I did post the video of what I got for $25 here on this channel. Do check that video out. And for those folks that have been asking about my yoga practice, I posted a short Afro blues yoga to some like jazzy, bluesy music. I posted a short video of my practice. And so people sometimes the response I get, how many breaths, how many times to do each pose. And sometimes when we're looking, I know I was very drawn to some of the different bendy things initially when I started Ashtanga yoga, and I've done Ashtanga, Bikram, Hatha, and Vinyasa, right? And so these different things can vary according to how much time you have. If you have any injuries, how flexible or inflexible you are. And I invite people to start simple. If you have a simple practice, if you have a simple practice, you'll have the consistency. I think the consistency can benefit people a lot more than being fancy with the poses. My godmother, who I love, she said to me, if you're pressed for time, just hit a pose or hit your sun salutations before you walk out the door. And that's just to build the consistency into your mind. And so the last longest stint of yoga that I did for years, that particular practice was committed to memory. And I was even kind of irritated that my teacher only gave me one little pose and sent me home. I was like, what the heck is this? I'm paying for this? But I tell you, I got some of the deepest rest, almost more restful than sleep, out of that particular practice, which I can still do today. And the practice is mine, right? It's portable. I don't need to necessarily go to a class. Now, at the same time, as someone that's worked as a personal trainer for many years, I can tell you, I've had numerous clients that have gotten injured from yoga, serious neck and shoulder injuries. So sometimes what you're looking at in the pose, people may not understand where to engage something very important, which is your scapular muscles. And that's the area where, we can really hurt ourselves or our neck. Or some folks, and when I was more quote unquote advanced, I used to injure or irritate one side of my neck. So there are many parts of our bodies that sometimes have imbalances in them, sometimes from where we carry our bag or so on. So one of my teachers, I had a private Ashtanga teacher work with just me. And I've done that for years, have invested in myself and different types of coaches and teachers. I always have from a very young age, because I always wanted to know what was the blind spot. And back then it was kind of sad to my ego. This private coach took a lot of my poses away from me. So a lot of my show offy headstands and shoulder stands, he pulled them away from me and said, then, you don't need to do them if you're which is common sense, if you're experiencing pain in that area. And we worked backwards. So he took more poses away from me, and it shortened my practice, right? So the ego, as dealing with it, shortened my practice, but it allowed me to deal with the areas of imbalance, and see other areas that I needed to strengthen, and areas that I was not addressing. And see, these are some of the things we may not want to take our time with, when it comes to a personal practice. And I would say the same principle applies to eating. People want to add more supplements and more stuff and more glow in the dark heart rate monitors. And we don't even have a foundation, and we're not looking at what to leave out, right? There's no shortcut for sleep and finding the amount of sleep that's appropriate for you where you feel rested, right? Then again, everybody has a different work schedule. So there are some general principles. For example, everybody can benefit from whole, fresh, living, unprocessed fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and spices. Some people have allergies, some people have budgets, right? So you have these general things, and then you work to find your own practice and your lifestyle. And it's organic, it's also like a moving target. The body's also going to change as you go through different ages and phases of life, and that's okay. That is totally okay. So we can have some insanity and some sanity and some relaxation around creating your own personal movement practice and your own routines, to see what you can do that's consistent and sustainable, when you need to back off on certain things, and when you can incorporate certain things. So I hope this is helpful, for folks. Do subscribe to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up if you found some value. Please share the video because it's simple, and it's doable. I think many people would make certain changes if they had support and someone to do things with. So that's part of what I'm using, this platform, and social media for. I do post lots of motivational stuff when it comes to natural hair, because I'm big on radical self-acceptance. I have very fine hair. When I say fine, these are not sister locks, but my hair is actually growing in super duper flat because it's not dense. So this is the fit hair that I have. So I'm just working with what I have. If I got a corn, a wrinkle, or whatever, my nails, this is what I have, and I'm big into appreciating it. But it doesn't mean I have to knock other people, for where they are and what they're eating, right? It's all our journey. You want to use your common sense and be on your particular journey. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest, right? Because sometimes looking so much at other people sometimes can be a distraction. So find your entry point, what resonates with you, what you can take and you can use, and keep it simple, and check in to see if you're motivated and have a healthy curiosity about how the foods that you're eating are affecting your mood, your elimination, how you feel after eating them. So share the video, with several people that you know, could benefit. Subscribe to the channel. Follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. And then also I'm starting to post more on the African dance and soul fitness, exercise. So I'm having a lot of fun with that, and I welcome you to join on. And you can subscribe to the newsletter on body-culinary.com. If you'd like to be updated on the webinar that I have coming up with my bestie, we're doing a webinar on fibroids, right? And so there may be even some men folk. If you're the man in your family, to your girlfriend or your mom that has fibroids, sometimes you might be the person that's on board with health, and you can share information with the women folk in your life. So we're going to be doing a webinar on that, and other short bite-sized webinars that are digestible for folks. And I'd love to hear feedback from you. What inspires you, what information you were able to take and incorporate. So with that, create a great day on purpose. And I will see you soon in another video. Take care.